She was sold to settle a debt at 11, until the wealthiest cowboy adopted her. The small town sat quietly between dry fields and long dusty roads where everyone knew each other's stories, or at least thought they did. Life there moved slowly, shaped by seasons, hard work, and the quiet struggle of families trying to survive. Most people woke early, worked long hours, and hoped tomorrow might be kinder than yesterday. Among these families was an 11-year-old girl who rarely spoke much but noticed everything around her. She lived in a small, worn house that had once been full of laughter but had slowly grown silent over the years. Her family had faced one problem after another. A poor harvest had taken away their main income. Unexpected medical bills followed, and debt began to grow like a shadow that would not leave. The adults argued in hushed voices late at night, thinking she could not hear. But she listened from behind thin walls. Words like money, owing, and no choice became familiar long before she understood their full meaning. Despite the tension at home, she remained gentle and thoughtful. She helped with chores, carried water, and tried to make herself useful so she would not be seen as another burden. She had learned early that staying quiet made life easier. Yet inside her mind lived dreams, simple dreams of safety, warmth, and a place where she felt truly wanted. One evening, everything changed. The adults spoke with visitors at the kitchen table while she sat alone outside, watching the sky slowly darken. Appeared. She sensed that the conversation was important, heavy with decisions that would shape her future. When she was finally called inside, she saw serious faces and avoided eye contact. No one explained things clearly. They spoke in careful words, saying this was the best solution, that it would help everyone. She nodded because she did not know how to refuse. The next morning came too quickly. A small bag was packed with her few belongings, worn clothes, a small book she loved, and a ribbon she had kept since childhood. As she stepped away from the house, she felt both numb and afraid. The road stretched ahead, unknown and endless. The place she was taken to felt different from the start. The house was larger but colder, filled with strangers who treated her politely but without warmth. She was given tasks and told where to sleep. No one shouted, but no one offered comfort either. She realized she was expected to adapt without questions. At first, she moved through each day like a shadow, careful not to make mistakes. She watched how others behaved and tried to copy them. She spoke only when necessary and kept her emotions hidden. At night, she lay awake, thinking about the life she had left behind, unsure whether to miss it or feel relieved. Days turned into weeks. She began to understand the rhythm of her new surroundings. There were animals to care for, chores to complete, and people who rarely looked directly into her eyes. Sometimes she felt invisible, yet she also noticed small details others ignored. The way sunlight touched the ground at sunset, the sound of distant horses, and the smell of rain before it arrived. One afternoon, she went into town to help with errands. The town center felt busy compared to the quiet house. People gathered at markets, exchanged stories, and laughed loudly. She stood slightly apart, watching life pass by. She wondered what it felt like to belong somewhere, without fear. In another part of the region lived a wealthy cowboy known by nearly everyone. His ranch spread across wide open land filled with horses and workers who respected him deeply. He had built his success through hard work and patience. Though many admired him, few knew him well. He kept to himself, focusing on his responsibilities and avoiding unnecessary attention. His life followed a steady routine: early mornings, long rides across the ranch, and evenings spent in silence. People assumed he had everything anyone could want, yet he often felt a quiet emptiness. Past experiences had taught him to keep emotional distance, and over time he had grown used to solitude. One day he traveled into town to handle business matters. As he walked through the busy streets, he noticed small details others overlooked. The way people interacted, the shifts in mood, the quiet struggles hidden behind ordinary smiles. Bass. Near a small market stand, his attention paused when he saw a young girl standing alone. She wasn't asking for attention or causing trouble. She simply watched the world with cautious eyes, as if trying to understand it while staying safe. Something about her stillness stood out. He noticed how she seemed older than her age, carrying herself with a quiet strength that did not match her years. Their first interaction happened almost by accident. He greeted her politely, expecting a shy response, but she answered with honesty and surprising calm. Their conversation was brief, simple, yet meaningful in ways neither fully understood at that moment. After they parted ways, he found himself thinking about her more than he expected. He wondered about her story, about why someone so young seemed so guarded. The question stayed with him long after he returned to the ranch. Meanwhile, she returned to her routine, unaware that the brief meeting had left an impression. Despair. She continued her daily tasks, balancing between hope and uncertainty. Somewhere deep inside, she felt that something had shifted, a small sense that someone had truly seen her for the first time. As the sun set over the wide fields, both their lives moved forward separately, yet the connection formed that day would soon begin to change everything. The girl did not yet know that her future would take a different direction, and the cowboy did not yet realize that a single moment of attention would lead him toward a decision that would reshape his life completely. The quiet town carried on as usual, unaware that a new story had begun, a story of resilience, unexpected kindness, and the slow building of trust between two people from very different worlds. After their brief meeting in town, the wealthy cowboy returned to his ranch, but his thoughts did not stay focused on work as they usually did. He had met many people during his life, yet something about the quiet girl stayed in his mind. It was not only her silence, but the way she watched everything carefully, as if she had learned to survive by understanding people before trusting them. He tried to ignore the feeling at first. Life on the ranch demanded attention. Workers needed direction, animals needed care, and long-term plans required constant focus. Still, during quiet moments, he found himself remembering her cautious eyes and the calm way she spoke. He wondered why a child her age carried such seriousness. Pick was best. A few days later, he returned to town again. Officially, he had business to handle, but deep inside he hoped he might see her again. The market was busy, filled with voices and movement. As he walked past familiar stalls, he spotted her near a wooden fence, helping with small tasks. She worked carefully, avoiding attention yet doing everything correctly. He approached slowly so he would not startle her. When she noticed him, her expression showed surprise, mixed with uncertainty. She did not know why he had come back or what he wanted. He greeted her gently and asked simple questions about how she was doing. At first her answers were short, but as the conversation continued, she relaxed slightly. He noticed how she chose her words carefully. She never complained, even when describing difficult situations. Instead, she focused on facts, as if emotions were something she kept hidden for safety. This made him more curious. Children usually spoke freely, yet she measured every sentence. During their conversation, he learned small details about her daily life. She worked long hours, followed strict routines, and rarely had time to simply be a child. Desk. She mentioned no close friends, and when he asked about family, she became quiet. He sensed there were parts of her story she was not ready to share. He did not push her. Instead, he spoke about simple things: the ranch, horses, and the wide open fields. For the first time, he saw a spark of curiosity in her eyes. She asked questions about animals and what it felt like to ride across open land. Her voice carried a hint of excitement that quickly faded, as if she had learned not to hope too much. After that day, he began visiting town more often. Bear. Their conversations grew longer each time. Slowly, she started to trust him, though she still kept emotional distance. He respected her boundaries, understanding that trust needed time. Meanwhile, people in town began to notice his interest. Some thought he was simply being kind, while others whispered quietly, wondering why a wealthy man would spend time talking to a quiet girl with a complicated background. He ignored the rumors, focusing only on what felt right. One afternoon, he saw her struggling with heavy supplies. Without making a big scene, he helped carry them. She hesitated at first, clearly not used to accepting help.
He explained calmly that accepting support did not make someone weak.
She listened carefully, as if the idea was new to her. As days passed, he began to understand more about her situation. The arrangement that brought her there had been made during difficult financial times. Though people described it as practical, it left her feeling disconnected and unsure of her place in the world. She did her best to adapt, but she lacked stability and genuine care. The realization weighed heavily on him. He had seen hardship before, but something about her quiet resilience affected him deeply. He remembered his own childhood, moments when he felt alone, despite being surrounded by people. The memory made it impossible for him to simply walk away. Still, he struggled internally. He knew that stepping into someone's life could create complications. He questioned whether his involvement would truly help or unintentionally cause problems. At night, he walked across his ranch, thinking about responsibility and the risks of becoming emotionally involved. During one visit, he invited her to see the ranch. He presented it as a simple opportunity to spend time outdoors, making sure she felt free to refuse. After careful thought, she agreed. The journey to the ranch filled her with both excitement and nervousness. When she arrived, she stood silently, taking in the wide open spaces. Horses moved freely across the land, and the air felt different, calm and alive. For the first time in a long while, she smiled without hesitation. He noticed the change immediately. He showed her how to approach the animals gently. At first, she moved cautiously, but soon she began to relax. She laughed softly when a young horse nudged her hand. The sound surprised both of them, as if it had been hidden for years. That day marked an important shift. She started to see him not only as a kind stranger, but as someone safe. He, in turn, felt a growing sense of responsibility. Watching her explore the ranch, he realized how much she had missed. Freedom, guidance, and simple joy. As time passed, their bond strengthened naturally. He never forced conversations or demanded trust. Instead, he created space for her to speak when she felt ready. Gradually, she began sharing more about her fears and the uncertainty she lived with daily.
The more he learned, the more he felt compelled to act.
We started researching ways to improve her situation, speaking quietly with local authorities and community members. The process was complex, filled with legal steps and social expectations. Meanwhile, she began to look forward to their meetings. The ranch became a place where she felt seen and valued. She learned small skills, helped with simple tasks, and discovered confidence she did not know she had. Yet both understood that nothing was certain. Their connection was growing, but the future remained unclear. He faced difficult decisions about how far he was willing to go, while she tried not to hope too strongly, afraid that change might disappear as suddenly as it had appeared. As the days moved forward, one truth became clear. Their lives were slowly becoming connected in ways neither had planned. What began as a brief meeting in a busy town was turning into something deeper, a journey toward trust, healing, and the possibility of a new beginning. As time passed, the visits between the cowboy and the young girl became a natural part of their lives. What had started as short conversations slowly turned into longer moments filled with trust, quiet laughter, and shared understanding. Neither of them spoke openly about how important these meetings had become, but both felt the change inside. The girl began to feel less afraid when she arrived at the ranch. The wide-open land no longer felt overwhelming. Instead, it felt peaceful. She learned how to walk beside the horses without fear, how to listen to the wind moving through the fields, and how to enjoy silence without feeling lonely. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to relax. The cowboy noticed these changes carefully. He had always paid attention to small details, but with her, he watched even more closely. He saw how her shoulders slowly relaxed, how she began to ask more questions, and how her voice grew stronger. These small signs meant more to him than any words. Their conversations became deeper. She started sharing pieces of her past, little by little. She spoke about nights filled with worry, about feeling like she had to grow up too quickly, and about learning to hide her feelings so she would not cause trouble for others. She never blamed anyone directly. Instead, she described events as if they were simply facts of life. Despair. He listened without interrupting. He understood that sometimes listening was more powerful than giving advice. As she spoke, he remembered parts of his own childhood, moments when he had felt alone and misunderstood. This connection made him feel protective, though he tried not to show it too strongly. One afternoon, while sitting near a fence watching the horses, she asked him why he chose to live alone. The question surprised him. Few people asked about his personal life. After a pause, he answered honestly, explaining that loss and disappointment had made him cautious about relationships. He told her that work had become his way of coping. She listened carefully, realizing that even strong adults carried hidden struggles. The conversation created a new level of trust between them. They were no longer just a man helping a child. They were two people sharing pieces of their stories. Meanwhile, people in the community continued to observe their growing bond. Some praised the cowboy's kindness, while others quietly questioned whether his involvement might create complications. The cowboy heard the whispers but refused to let them guide his decisions. He focused on the girl's well-being above all else. During one visit to town, he noticed she looked more tired than usual. Her movements were slower, and her eyes seemed distant. After gentle questioning, she admitted that life at her current home had become more difficult. Expectations were increasing, and she felt pressure to prove her worth constantly. She did not complain directly, but her words revealed exhaustion. That evening, the cowboy walked alone across his ranch, thinking deeply. He realized that simply offering occasional kindness was not enough anymore.
If he truly wanted to help, he needed to consider taking a bigger step.
The idea both inspired and frightened him. He began gathering information about legal options. The process was complicated and required patience. He spoke with advisors and community leaders, asking questions carefully without drawing too much attention. But each answer revealed new challenges, but he did not give up. At the same time, he made sure the girl never felt pressured or obligated. Their time together remained natural. He taught her how to care for young animals, how to read signs of changing weather, and how to ride slowly across open land. She absorbed every lesson eagerly, as if each new skill helped her rebuild confidence. One day she surprised him by laughing loudly after a small mistake while learning to ride. The sound echoed across the fields. He paused, realizing it was the first time he had heard her laugh without hesitation. The moment felt important, a sign that she was beginning to feel safe enough to be herself. Later that afternoon, she confessed something quietly. She said she felt different when she was at the ranch. as if she could finally breathe without fear. She admitted she worried about returning to her current life each time the day ended. Narration. Her honesty touched him deeply. He reassured her gently without making promises he was not yet ready to confirm. Bear. Still inside, he felt more determined than ever. He knew he needed to act soon. The turning point came during a community gathering. While people shared stories and food, he watched her standing at the edge of the crowd, unsure where she belonged. Despite the kindness she received from some people, she remained an outsider. The realization hit him strongly. She needed stability, not temporary comfort. That night, he made a decision. He would pursue becoming her legal guardian, no matter how difficult the journey might be. The thought filled him with both fear and hope. Taking responsibility for another person's future was not something he approached lightly. Over the following weeks, he began the formal process quietly. Paperwork, meetings, and evaluations required time and patience. He faced questions about his intentions, his lifestyle, and whether he could truly provide the emotional support a child needed. Each challenge tested his determination, but he remained steady. Meanwhile, the girl sensed that something important was happening. She noticed his thoughtful expressions and longer conversations with officials. Though he did not reveal everything immediately, she felt a shift in the air, a possibility she had never allowed herself to imagine. During one peaceful evening at the ranch, as the sun set behind distant hills, he finally spoke openly. He explained that he was trying to create a future where she would have stability, education, and a safe home.
He made it clear that nothing was guaranteed yet, but he wanted her to know his intentions.
She listened silently, struggling to process the idea. Hope felt both beautiful and frightening. She had learned not to expect too much from life, yet his words opened a door she had kept closed. Instead of celebrating immediately, she asked careful questions. Would she have to change completely? Would she still be allowed to be herself? He answered gently, promising that his goal was to help her grow, not to change who she was. As the conversation ended, both felt the weight of the moment. They understood that their relationship was entering a new phase, one filled with challenges but also possibility. The journey ahead would test their patience, courage, and trust. Yet for the first time, the girl allowed herself to imagine a future where she was not alone. And for the cowboy, the decision brought unexpected clarity, a sense that his life was finally moving towards something meaningful beyond work and solitude. After the cowboy shared his intentions about creating a stable future for the girl, everything between them felt both hopeful and uncertain. The idea of a new life brought warmth, but it also brought fear. Neither of them knew exactly how long the process would take or what obstacles might appear along the way. The cowboy began attending meetings with officials and community representatives.
Each step required patience and honesty. He answered detailed questions about his past, his daily routines, and his plans for providing a supportive environment.
He understood that these questions were necessary, but they still felt personal and sometimes exhausting. Meanwhile, the girl continued living between two worlds. On some days, she stayed at her current home, completing tasks and maintaining responsibilities. On other days, she visited the ranch, where she felt calm and safe. The contrast between these environments made her emotions complicated. She felt grateful for the cowboy's support, but worried about becoming too hopeful too soon. But people around them reacted in different ways. Some members of the community encouraged the cowboy, believing he was doing something kind and meaningful. Others questioned his decision quietly, unsure why a wealthy man would take on such responsibility. Rumors spread, as they often do in small towns, but he tried not to let them affect his focus. The legal process moved slowly. There were forms to complete, background checks to pass, and evaluations to attend. Social workers visited the ranch to observe how he lived and how he interacted with the girl. He welcomed them respectfully, showing honesty rather than trying to appear perfect. He believed sincerity would matter more than pretending. During these visits, the girl felt nervous. She worried about saying the wrong thing or doing something that might cause problems. The cowboy reassured her gently, reminding her that she only needed to be herself. Over time, she grew more comfortable answering questions and sharing her experiences. Life on the ranch continued to shape her confidence. Narration. She learned new skills every week. Caring for animals, preparing meals, and managing small responsibilities. The cowboy never treated her like a burden, but instead he encouraged her independence while providing guidance when she needed it. One afternoon, while repairing a fence together, she asked him whether he was afraid of failure. He paused before answering, then admitted that he was. He explained that taking responsibility for someone's future was a serious commitment. He wanted to make sure he was doing the right thing, not just what felt emotional in the moment. His honesty made her trust him even more. She realized he was not pretending to be perfect. He was simply trying his best. However, challenges soon appeared. One official raised concerns about whether the cowboy, who had lived alone for many years, could adjust to becoming a full-time guardian. Another questioned whether the girl would adapt easily to such a big change. These doubts slowed the process and forced additional evaluations. The delays frustrated both of them, though neither showed it openly. Instead, they focused on small positive moments, shared meals, quiet conversations, and long walks across the land. These simple experiences strengthened their bond and reminded them why they were continuing despite difficulties. At times, the girl felt overwhelmed by uncertainty. She feared that everything might fall apart at the last moment. One evening, she confessed this fear, saying she did not want to lose another place she had begun to care about. The cowboy listened carefully and reassured her that no matter what happened, he would continue supporting her. His words gave her comfort, but she still guarded her emotions. She had learned from past experiences that hope could sometimes lead to disappointment. Still, a small part of her began to believe that this time might be different. As weeks turned into months, their relationship grew stronger. They developed routines that felt natural. Morning chores, shared learning moments, and evenings spent watching sunsets. She began to smile more often, and her laughter became a familiar sound across the ranch. The cowboy also changed. Friends noticed he seemed lighter, more open, and more connected to life. The responsibility he had once feared began to feel like purpose. He realized that caring for someone had brought meaning he had not expected. Finally, an important meeting was scheduled to review the progress of the adoption process. Both felt nervous as the day approached. The girl worried about what questions might be asked, while the cowboy prepared carefully, reviewing every detail to ensure nothing was overlooked. During the meeting, officials discussed their observations. They spoke about the positive environment at the ranch, the girl's growing confidence, and the strong bond between them. They also acknowledged the challenges but emphasized the progress made. Waiting for the final decision felt like the longest part of the journey. Days passed slowly, filled with anticipation. The girl found herself imagining what life might look like if the adoption became official. A permanent home, stable routines, and a future she could finally plan for. When the decision finally arrived, it marked a turning point. The adoption was approved. The moment felt almost unreal. The cowboy remained calm on the outside, but inside, he felt deep relief and gratitude. The girl struggled to process the news at first, then slowly allowed herself to feel joy. They celebrated quietly, choosing meaningful moments over grand gestures. That evening they walked together across the ranch, watching the sky change colors as the sun set. For the first time, she felt certain that she belonged somewhere. Although challenges would still come in the future, the hardest part of the journey had been completed. They had faced doubts, delays, and emotional struggles together, and emerged stronger. The approval of the adoption did not just change her life, it transformed his as well. Both understood that their story was not about rescue, but about two people choosing to build a family through trust, patience, and kindness. After the adoption became official, life did not suddenly turn perfect, but it became stable in ways both of them had never experienced before. The girl moved fully into the ranch, and for the first time she had a room that truly felt like her own. It was simple, filled with soft colors and practical furniture. Yet to her it felt like the most important space in the world because it represented belonging. The first few weeks were filled with adjustments. Even though she had spent time at the ranch before, living there permanently felt different. She woke each morning unsure whether everything was real. Sometimes she paused during daily routines, simply taking in the quiet sense of safety around her. The cowboy also adjusted to his new role. He had spent many years living alone, making decisions only for himself. Now he thought about schedules, school activities, and creating a supportive environment for someone else. At first, he worried about making mistakes, but he approached each day with patience and care. They created routines together. Morning chores became shared moments rather than tasks. He showed her how to manage responsibilities step by step, encouraging her independence while remaining nearby when she needed guidance. She learned quickly, eager to prove that she valued the trust he had placed in her. School became an important part of her new life. At first, she felt nervous about fitting in. She had always been quiet, and starting fresh felt overwhelming. However, with encouragement, she began participating more in class. Teachers noticed her determination and curiosity. Slowly, she made friends who appreciated her kindness and thoughtful nature.
Outside of school, she continued learning about ranch life.
But she grew especially close to one gentle horse that seemed to understand her calm personality. Caring for the animal gave her confidence. She realized she was capable of nurturing something, just as she had been nurtured. The cowboy watched these changes with quiet pride. He rarely expressed strong emotions openly, but his actions showed how deeply he cared. He attended school meetings, listened to her stories about new experiences, and made sure she always felt supported. Despite the positive changes, moments of uncertainty still appeared. Sometimes memories of her past returned unexpectedly.
On certain evenings, she became quieter, lost in thought. When this happened, he did not force conversation.
Instead, he offered presence, sitting nearby, letting her know she was not alone. One evening, she finally spoke openly about her fears. She admitted that part of her still worried that everything could disappear suddenly. She had experienced so much change in her life that stability felt fragile. He listened carefully and reassured her that this home was permanent, built on commitment rather than circumstance. His words slowly eased her fears. Over time, she began to believe that she did not need to constantly prepare for loss. As the years passed, the ranch transformed into more than a place to live. It became a symbol of growth for both of them. She matured into a confident young woman who balanced strength with kindness. Her experiences had given her deep empathy for others facing challenges. The cowboy also changed in ways he had not expected. Friends noticed that he laughed more often and engaged more openly with the community. The once quiet ranch became a welcoming place where people gathered and shared stories. Through caring for her, he rediscovered parts of himself that had been hidden by years of solitude. Bears, Their bond deepened into a true father-daughter relationship. They celebrated small victories together, her academic achievements, successful projects on the ranch, and personal milestones that once seemed impossible. These moments built memories that replaced past pain with new meaning.
As she grew older, she began helping others in the community.
She volunteered at local programs, offering support to children who felt isolated or misunderstood. She understood their struggles in a way few others could.
Her story became a quiet source of inspiration, showing that change was possible even after difficult beginnings. One day, during a community event, someone asked her what had changed her life the most.
She thought carefully before answering. Instead of focusing on hardship, she spoke about kindness, how one person choosing to care could create a chain of positive change. The cowboy listened from a distance, feeling both proud and emotional. He realized that while he had believed he was helping her, she had also transformed him. Breath. She had brought purpose, warmth, and connection back into his life. Years later, as they walked together across the ranch at sunset, they reflected on how far they had come. The field stretched wide under golden light, and the air carried a peaceful silence. She spoke about her future plans, filled with confidence and hope. He listened, knowing she was ready to create her own path. Their journey showed that family could be built through choice, patience, and trust. What began as a chance meeting between two strangers had grown into a lifelong bond that reshaped both their lives. The story ends not with a dramatic conclusion, but with a quiet sense of fulfillment. The girl who once felt uncertain about her place in the world now stood strong, supported by a home where she was valued. The cowboy who once lived alone found meaning in guiding someone toward a brighter future.